All right. My name is Joe Amditis. I'm Associate Director of Operations at the Center for Cooperative Media. And I've been at the center. Hold on one second. Stephanie, thank you. Uh, yeah, I've been at the center for about 10 years, a little over 10 years now. And as my title suggests, my job is to keep everything moving and to manage the operations of the Center for Cooperative Media, which for those of you who aren't familiar, although I assume most of you are, we're a journalism support organization based at Montclair State University. And our job is to manage, number one, to manage and facilitate conversation and collaboration with the New Jersey news ecosystem. We have a network we call the New Jersey News Commons, which is a collection of more than 280, I think, or upwards of about 300 local, hyperlocal, ethnic, and community media organizations throughout New Jersey of varying sizes and constituencies and languages. And then we also manage and do research for our collaborative journalism program nationally and internationally. And so what that involves a lot of moving pieces and a lot of communication redundancy. And with just three full, or technically I think four full-time staff, it falls on me to make sure that the gears are turning behind the scenes so that everybody gets the information they need, that the documents they need, the project info and all that stuff when they need it. And in order to do that, I have to use a lot of simple and increasingly complex automations and workflows. So that is where I come from. That's my experience in this. And I come to this with very little coding, like hard coding experience. And so I've had to use a lot of these tools and learn new tools all the time to keep up with everything, because not only am I attempting to distribute and push out information to external partners, but I'm also in charge of documentation and tracking and process standard operating procedures internally at the center. Okay, so a brief overview of what we're going to cover here and some definitions and distinctions here. Number one, my goal here is to show you the process and the logic behind this, these sorts of workflows. We are going to be using Zapier, and we do pay for we have an education discount or a nonprofit discount of like $25 a month off. We are going to be using what I have access to, which is a pro account of Zapier. But I am a big fan of not giving money to companies whenever possible. And many of the things that we're going to be doing, at least in the first two sessions, can be done with a free account or two free accounts with different email addresses. Because the way Zapier works is it talks to your apps on your end. So the Zapier account that you're using to outline the process or the workflow, you can create multiple accounts technically to handle the different requests if you need to. Now, to be fair, if we're talking about building with scale in mind and being able to grow these things and increase their reach, you probably don't want to set yourself up for that, because that is the whole point of this, is to create like logical, structured, like predictable processes and not add more spaghetti, connections to the chaos. So if you are unable to or unwilling to pay for any of those accounts to do what you need to do for your own work case, you can start as a test case and like learning this software with this free accounts or whatever. I believe the free Zapier account still allows up to 5 different Zaps. And when I say Zap, that is the set of instructions for the automation. So there are Zaps and there are tasks. Tasks are each step that it takes to achieve in those workflow, and a Zap is a list of instructions. So for example, you can have a Zap with all kinds of steps, like 16 different actions that happen or whatever, and that still counts as one Zap, but the 16 tasks will add up as well. And Zapier measures your quota or your activity usage based on the tasks. So you can have an unlimited number of Zaps that exist, but if only 3 of them are running per month, only the steps in those 3 active Zaps will count towards your monthly quota. And you'll see more about what I mean later. So just an issue on terminology there. Also, there are other programs that effectively accomplish or provide the same services. One of them you may be familiar with is Make.com. Make.com is almost an identical copy, or if you will, of Zapier, although I don't technically know which one came first. Make is known for having a really nicely designed visual interface that allows you to set up your automations, and it looks like really cool and like streamlined and everything. Whereas Zapier, to me, feels more like blueprint style, more technical drawing kind of stuff. It's basically just a difference between straight right angle lines and curved lines, honestly. And if you were using Make, a lot of the things, almost everything we're talking about, other than like the fine details of the interface in Zapier, will be translatable and transferable to something like Make.com. I will say Make, I was unable to do a particular Telegram automation in Zapier, and I found that Make.com did allow me to do that. So there may be differences that I'm not fully aware of, additional features and integrations with Make and Zapier that one is better than the other, but at its core, the concepts and the structure of what we're talking about should be transferable to other automation apps. Okay. Any questions on that before we move on to more details about Zapier and how this works? And I sent an email today to you all. You should have received with an overview of like what we're going to cover today, essentially, and what we're going to cover for the rest of the week is on the Eventbrite and the calendar invite. Any questions there? And again, feel free to just unmute and start talking. You don't have to use the raise hand. Okay, seeing none. Okay, so today we're going to go over what is Zapier, which we sort of already touched on, and why it's useful for journalists and smaller newsrooms. And again, a lot of this stuff is applicable not just explicitly for journalism, but I'm coming to do this from that perspective. So a lot of the language and the examples I use will be in the context of journalism. We'll also go over some basic concepts of automation and how these things are designed, what the workflows look like. We'll get you set up on a Zapier account. We'll get an overview of the interface, and we'll go over some of the more useful and like common apps and integrations that I use, that we use at the center as well. And then your quote unquote homework, or the activity sort of at the end if we still have time. But your homework coming into Wednesday will be, we're going to have hopefully set the groundwork for our first automation, our first Zap. I'd also, just side note, some of you may pronounce it Zapier, some of like rapier, like a sword, because they're called Zaps. I figured it's called Zapier, but I'm just going to say Zapier. You can call it whatever you want. Okay, so let me jump in. Let's get a screen share going here, because what would a workshop on Zoom be without a good old screen share? Let's open up Zapier, and I want to just start with a sort of overview of the Zapier interface. So it's zapier.com. And as we're going along, I would encourage you to go ahead and create your account. You can start with a free account. Nothing we're going to be doing, I don't think, in this session will require a paid account, since we're going to be doing your first Zap. If you already have an account, by all means, go ahead and log in. When you open Zapier, you'll find this page. This is your dashboard, your interface here at the beginning, and they have a bunch of different stuff here. They have your updated Zaps. They have some templates. They have this relatively brand new, like beta testing, like AI fueled, automation builder. And I do want to make it clear that when we are talking about this stuff, there's a lot of conflation in the tech world right now when it comes to the word or the acronym AI. It seems to me, and this is a personal pet peeve, that fucking everything is AI now. It's just everything from machine learning to any kind of photo editing now is lumped in with AI. And it really is an insult to all the VFX and CGI artists out there, and photo editing and designers and illustrators out there. Not everything is AI. I'm going to strictly try to stay away from any actual generative AI applications for this, although we can certainly discuss, and I will show you some of the ways that I slip a layer of generative AI into these things down the line. But it's always for like, honestly, the most common use is like, I need you to format this text into sentence case instead of title case. So it's little things basically that I might reference or hint at, where I don't have the time to write out all the formulas for what needs to be capitalized in a headline, and instead I'll just use that as a band-aid to say, like, read this text and reformat it for me. But we're going to expressly stay away from actual what the generative AI stuff, and we're going to focus on what I like to call if this then that automation. And you may have heard the if this then that phraseology before, because it is actually the name of the first automation tool that I ever used, which is called If This and That, IFTT. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It is a trigger and response. Trigger being, when something happens in this app or in this area, I want you to do the following in this other area based on that trigger. So we have a trigger, something happens, and then we have a response, some action is taken. And so when we talk about if this, then that, or if I talk about triggers and actions, we have an inciting incident, and then we have the resulting action that takes place afterwards. So in your interface here, you have on the left sidebar, we have our create button, which allows us to just jump right in and create Zaps. We're not going to get into too much detail about tables and interfaces and chatbots and Canvas and everything. That is even a higher pro paid subscription to Zapier than we are willing to pay for, and I haven't needed any of them. Although I do understand, my understanding that the tables aspect is like really, really useful if you don't already rely on something like Google Sheets or Airtable or some other relational database software or spreadsheet platform. Then we have our home button, obviously, home button. We have our Discover, which is essentially like a community like pinboard of different use cases and templates for different products and different types of apps. You can see here they have these kind of templates where I would highly recommend that you go through these and you look and search through them and try to find some that may spark interest or curiosity in terms of the types of tasks that you would like to automate. And when we talk about the types of tasks that we're trying to automate for our purposes, I'm thinking always of repetitive things that I do the same over and over again. Things that result in my current state of my keyboard, which is a barely visible control key and a barely visible C and V keys, because I'm constantly control C, control V, or command V and command V. Anytime you are like frequently or consistently copying and pasting something from here to there, from Sheets to Airtable, from Airtable to Gmail, things like that, we're going to focus on those repetitive tasks and ways that we can set up an automation to take care of that for you. So I would recommend in your spare time, or if you need some inspiration, go ahead and browse through the Discover tab here on Zapier. But then making our way down the list here on the left side, we have our Zaps tab, which is pretty self-explanatory. This is where you are going to mostly be operating when it comes to Zapier. And they have it laid out as such. You have the My Zaps, which is like an overarching folder, but it also allows you to create folders and create new Zaps here using this create button or create over here. You can also create a folder, a subfolder using this plus button. And all that does is help you organize things. So here's our folder for automation and chatbots. I have a couple of different subfolders under that folder. I have folders for individual projects or initiatives that the center does or operates, where I just need to have all of them sort of in one place. Sometimes it's just one folder. Sometimes it's several in a folder, right? And we're going to go through the rest of this as well. So I would recommend if you're starting, you can just do it in the main folder here. I tend to just use this for the ones that I don't really either have a folder for, or these are ones that I come back to frequently. And then I have them broken up by event-based automations that involve email or subscribers, and then various initiatives and projects, whether it's election or our COVID-19 thing. Democracy Day is a collaborative journalism project that we manage and facilitate. These are automations related to our various newsletters, whether it's the internal one at the School of Communication and Media, which we call the Weekender, or if it's the daily news roundup that does not stand for Do Not Resuscitate, although I laugh every time I see it. And then we have our collaborative journalism newsletter. Quick check, quick pause here. Is this zoomed in far enough? Is it better if I zoom in a little bit more for you all, or is that better? Okay, I'll keep it zoomed in when I can, but as long as it doesn't take up too much space on the screen, I want to make sure we can see all the elements. Okay, moving further down the line, again, we are going to skip tables, interfaces, chatbot, Canvas, and we're going to go to our apps tab here. This is where all of the apps, then connections or integrations that we have set up for our automations can be found here. Anytime you connect an app to Zapier, you will find it listed in the apps tab here as usual. And you can see here, you can click on any one of these and you can start seeing like how many connections are here. So we have 5 different integrations, whether for Airtable, at being in particular certain bases or workspaces that we work with. And you can see how many Zaps are associated with essentially with each API key is essentially what it is. I'll pause real quick for some terminology. For those of you who don't know, I'm assuming most of you know, or have learned from context clues what an API is. It stands for Application Programming Interface. An API is simply a Rosetta Stone that allows 2 different apps to talk to each other and speak the same language. So when I say API, or if I say integration, just know that that is the connective tissue that allows something like Airtable and Zapier, or Airtable, Zapier, and Gmail to communicate and send information back and forth. So it'll allow me to take information in an Airtable space or spreadsheet and extract that information and then use it to generate a draft email, for instance. So that's essentially what we're going to be using the term API to refer to. Again, you can see here 15 Zaps for this one, 8, 34 for this one, and 4 for this one. Then you have your Zap history tab. And this is also self-explanatory. It is the record, the documentation record of all of the various automations that have run over a certain period of time. So for our cases here, you're seeing a lot of ones that say filtered. Each one of these is an automation request that has either gone through. So if I filter and show the successful ones, we can see I have one that adds a staff message in Slack to a digest. We're not going to get into it now, but you can see that it was successful. It was run. There were 0 tasks run, probably because it was filtered out. But if I click on that little arrow on that run here, we can see the history of that. Every step that happened. There was a new message posted in a Slack channel. The filter did not run, right? It did not run path B. It ran path A. So I had a filter set up, and we can even dive further and see what that was. It's a digest message. Here's the information from the message, and it was added to our digest. I will touch on digest in the second and third iteration of this series because it's a more complicated process. But for these purposes, all you need to know is that there are ways to collect information from automations and then release them all at once. So here we can see a very much simpler Zap. This is our top stories section. When a new record is added to a specific Airtable view, that information from that record is then put into Google Sheets, and there is HTML formatting added on either side of the information. So that's the Zap history page. This is a really useful page when you want to say, okay, I thought this automation was going to work, but I haven't seen it come through. So let me go ahead and check to see if there are any that were stopped or halted that didn't work. And you can go try to troubleshoot or diagnose what the issue was by clicking and seeing where did it fail. I see success, success, success. And then, of course, we have an exception here. This is an error message. The search step did not work because it couldn't find anything in the search. So anytime you have an issue with a Zap or it's not, you're waiting for the result to come through and you don't see it, you can head over to the Zap history tab to learn more. Again, we're not going to get into all this stuff because these are advanced features that I really haven't found much of a use for yet. But our final area here is down at the bottom. This is our little ticker or our task tracker here to see, you see what plan you're on. Pro 5K means I have 5,000 tasks and I have an unlimited Zaps or sets of instructions. You can see when the usage resets, that number will go to 0 in 3 weeks. And as you get closer and closer to that limit, you may have to go into the managed plan table here and try to upgrade or configure how to increase your limit. Okay, so any questions on that? I see a chat message here. Oh, awesome. Any questions on that before we move forward into some basic overview of what a Zap consists of? Nope. Okay. All right. Let's hop back into it. Cool. So, all right. So let's start. Let's start by thinking maybe somebody can call out, unmute and call out here. What is something, when you came into this training, what is something that you're looking to automate? A basic if this, then that. What is a common use case? I heard somebody mention Airtable earlier. Maybe there's WordPress automations you're interested in. I have an example I'm going to show you that's very simple, but it open the floor in case anybody. Heather, you unmuted. Did you have one in mind?
Yeah, I was trying to get meeting notes from Tactic to put in a specific Word doc.
Okay, so Tactic is a meeting notes and transcription thing. I'm assuming it's similar to the Fathom Notebot that I have in here. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, anytime you want to know if an automation is possible, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go up here and we're going to click Explore Apps because we want to see if Tactic is one of the apps that is available. And it looks like it is, unless I am mistaken here. Let me see the branding. Yep, that's the same logo. It looks like that app is available. So because I don't have a Tactic account, I guess I could make one quick. Hold on. Let me make one real quick. Bear with me for a second. Let's use Gmail. Okay, boom. Now I have a Tactic. We probably won't use this one, but because I don't have any like pre-existing examples or meetings logged in here. for our purposes, this seems very similar to Fathom. So let's go ahead and use Fathom as this example. This is a great example, a very simple automation. I have a meeting notes or a meeting summary that I would like to translate or put into a different format. And we're going to use Google Docs for this, if you don't mind. Is that okay? So for this example, we use Google Docs. So I'm just going to go to my Zapier homepage here. I know that Fathom and Tactic, so this can be applied there. And I'm going to click, I'm going to go to my Zaps first so I can stay organized. And I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder. And my folder is going to be called Instruction, because this is what we'll use for this class. And you can see I have a folder here. So I'm going to click on the folder. There are no Zaps in this folder. So I'm going to click Create a New Zap. And again, that Copilot thing, if you really are confused and you don't know where to start, you can just in plain language describe what you would like to happen. And Zapier will do little calculations with its Copilot AI thing, and it'll create a template for you. The reason I don't like to use this is, number one, it just feels like I already know what I'm doing. But number two is it sort of pre-fills a lot of the things for you, and I end up spending more time like undoing it than necessary. And because this is a relatively simple one, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to click and hold in this little canvas area, and you can see I can move it around. I'm going to click Trigger. This is the event that starts your Zap. So mine would be for Fathom, when a new meeting summary is available, I would like it to then turn that into a Google Doc. So right away, you can see that a little sidebar panel has opened here. This is your visual editor, and you can see, you can do a little rename this new meeting notes available. Rename that. And then you can see my action here. These little plus signs, we can add a step. We can copy these steps. We can even click and drag them once we get our setup done. We can rearrange visually. And then the sidebar here is your configuration panel. So for Fathom, I'm going to configure the app. The app, we're going to use Fathom. That's fine. Our trigger event is it's a new, let's say a new AI summary, right? When there's a new summary of our meeting notes here, I want that to be the trigger. And you can see now that it's kidding. That would be amazing. Okay, let's try this one more time. Good Lord. Okay, new AI summary. Come on, baby. Okay, you can see now that there's a little green lightning bolt added. Zapier has different settings for different apps. Sometimes the app itself will only allow you to check if there's a new meeting or a new item every 2 or 5 minutes, but some apps allow instantaneous triggers. So this one indicates that this one will happen instantaneous. There's no wait period for the request information. So my new AI summary and the account. So for me, it's already put in there because I only have one account. For you, you may need to add a new connection. You may need to basically log into Fathom through Zapier so that it knows who you are and what repository of meeting notes you are going to be acting on. That's it for this first setup. Now we're going to click Continue now that this is all accurate, and we're going to move to the Configure tab here. So we're going to trigger on what? What do we want? We want all of my meetings. I don't have any team meetings set up, so we're just going to do my meetings. And boom, that's it for now. This trigger is anytime there's a new meeting under my meetings, which you can see here. After I sign in, you can see that the way Fathom works, and I think the way most of them work now, is you have your little dashboard and homepage. You can see all my calls, right? We can see them. They've been recorded here, and there are notes associated with each one. There's a summary. There's attendees. All this information is structured data, and it's information that Zapier is going to have access to by little unique identifiers. And you're going to be able to pull each of these chunks into Zapier in order to create your automation. So I'm going to trigger on my meetings. I'm going to click Continue. Now we're in the test panel here. So this is going to give us a sample chunk of information so that when we are setting this up, we have all the pieces and we can organize those pieces. So in order for this to be successful, we need to have a meeting already existing in our My Meetings or My Calls tab. And we do. So when we test our trigger, it should come up and give us an example of this AI summary. And we can see here that this is the one we were just on, our vision, mission, values, and theory of change call that we had. We can see all that structured data was extracted from that meeting, and including the summary, the attendees, all of this stuff. And you can see it's formatted in HTML here. Sometimes it gives you Markdown. Yep, we got Markdown formatting. So Fathom makes this really easy for you to pull that information in various formats depending on what you need to use it for, including plain text here. So if you don't see your meeting summary or your item here, you can click Find New Records. And if those other records exist, sometimes it will add, AI summary A or B. But for our purposes, we just need this one. So we're going to click this. And we're going to click Continue with Selected Record. Now, we've set up our trigger. Now, obviously, if this, then that. So our that, in this case, our action, we're going to be doing Google Docs. And you can browse all of the apps here. You can choose from the Zapier products or built-in tools from Zapier. And I highly recommend just sort of going through these to see what it's capable of doing and what apps are available. But because I know exactly what I want, I'm going to just type in Google here, and we can see all the different Google apps and services that are available. For us, we're going to do Google Docs. Now, our action here is we'd like it to create a new Google Doc and populate that Google Doc with the information from our Fathom meeting summary. So we have our app selected. We're going to choose our action event. Now, you have a list here of all the predetermined actions for this app. In the case of Google Docs, we have about 4 or 5 up here at the top, or we have a final one under search, which is find a document. We're not going to focus on that, but in the case of, let's say you want it to add this text to a specific Google Doc, you can add what's called a search step that will allow you to pull up the one you want based on the information. So let's say under our meeting notes, there is a particular tag or a particular attendee email address or a topic. If we only want to, if we have a running Google Doc for our meetings with Joe, I can add a search step that pulls up that specific Google Doc based on that information and adds it or appends it to the end of an existing doc. We don't need to do that. So what we're going to do is we're just going to have it create document from text. And you can see here, we need to select our account. So I will go ahead and I'll select my personal Google Drive because I have 10 terabytes of storage there. And once we select that, you can see it's been used in 10 Zaps, so we know that it's active. I can also test my connection just to make sure that it's still active and it's good. And in this case, it is. So now we've set up our trigger and I've indicated where we want the action or response to happen. So I'm going to click Continue. And again, we're going to move over to our Configure tab. Now, here is where the fun stuff is. So because this information that is being pulled in from Fathom is going to be different every time, we have the opportunity here to create dynamic field inputs. So if I want the document, I don't want every time we create a new document, I don't want it to just be called meeting notes, right? Or meeting summary. I want it to have a unique name based on the topic or the title of the meeting itself. So what I can do is I can type in the static part here, meeting summary, : I can hit space, and then I can use this plus sign here to add dynamic information. And that is pulling, get out of here, it's Copilot suggestions. You can see now here all of the different tagged structured data that was pulled in from that meeting note, or that meeting summary from Fathom. So, and you can see here the bold is the name of the element, and then the gray text here, the light gray text, will show the actual text or information from the example we used in our test when we did our test trigger, right? So for this meeting, we remember it's called Vision, Mission, Values plus TOC//C. We got to name our meetings better. So for our case, I want it to be meeting summary, vision, mission, values, weekly CCM team meeting. So now for the next meeting, the title of the Google Doc will be meeting summary, weekly team meeting, or, check-in, partner check-in, right? And for the document content, what we can do here, and anytime you see this, you can click on this and it will explain. This is going to be plain text content to put inside of the new doc. It also supports basic inline HTML for formatting, and you can add links. Tables probably won't work well for this, but what it means by basic inline HTML formatting is, let's say, for those of you, I'm assuming you have some basic HTML understanding. Let's say I want to format a particular piece of text as bold text. I can create the bold tags for HTML, and in here, I can navigate to the middle here. I can click the button, and I can say bold. And so now when this text is added to the Google Doc, the line of text in between these bold tags will be formatted as bold. I can also do the same thing with H2 or anything we want. I recommend if you're a little shaky on your HTML and CSS roots, that you start with just doing plain text, And then maybe you bring over, a bot over here and say you paste the text. Like, let's just see here. If I have a new doc and I want to create, or not a new doc, I have a document that I want to, be formatted in HTML. Let's take this school district thing. I want to take this. This is where maybe the AI bots might be useful for you. Format this text in HTML, and I can paste that text in here, and then the bot will do the formatting for me. This is where these things actually are really useful. But for our purposes, we don't necessarily need to do all this. We can just write the HTML ourselves here, or we can do plain text and then, piece by piece edit stuff. But if I did want to do that, it's already added the tags for me here. And all I have to do is copy this HTML, paste it in here, and then swap out the actual text for these dynamic information cards, as we saw. So for us, we have a document name is going to be meeting vision, mission, values. I'm going to get this text H1, and I'm going to add the summary, the plain text summary. Actually, no, I'm going to do the HTML because it's already formatted with Fathom. We have our HTML formatted. I'm going to add a line break, 2 line. Actually, I'll just do it in paragraph form here. I'll add a new paragraph. Actually, you know what? I don't want the whole thing. I'm just going to drop it in because it looks like the P tag is already there. So all I've done now is I've added the dynamic title at the header at the top of the document, and then I just added the dynamic HTML formatted text from the summary sections. Just make sure that's the right one. I'm going to search for HTML in here. I did choose the wrong one. We don't want the sections. We want the full AI summary. So I'm going to add that right in there. So right now, that is what my document is going to look like. It's going to be a H1 text with the title of the meeting, and then however the meeting summarizer bot formatted the HTML, the content will be in there. Then I'm going to select the destination. Where do I want this document to appear? Now, I can open my Google Drive, and I can create a new folder for this. I think I have one called test. I do, so I'm just going to use that. In the test folder here, I'm going to create a new folder that says doc summaries, or I'm sorry, meeting summaries. And in that folder, I want that to appear here. So how do I get that here? So I can go here and I can refresh our results here just to make sure that it's the most updated one. And I can just search for meeting. No results were found. So let's refresh our summary thing again here. Let's clear that selection. Let's refresh our fields just so that I probably shouldn't have just added a new one here. In our root folder, do we have test? We do have test. So we found the test folder, and there's a little arrow here. We can show the subfolders for test. We don't see anything in here right now because it takes a second to load. So instead, I'm just going to go, oh, there it is. Boom, meeting summaries. It appeared. So this folder is this folder, and under my drive, which is root meaning the base folder for your drive, and under test, and then meeting summaries. So if all goes well, when I click continue to test this step, you can see what data is going in. And then when we hit test step, it will run this as if it were already active automation. And then we should see in this folder a new Google Doc appear with the name that we indicated and the content. So we're going to hit test step, and we're going to let this run. When it's done, it's going to show us the data it output. So we have our data in tab here. This is what we sent it. This is what came out of it. All of our information about the Google Drive ownership, the links and everything, and the content as well. So as we go over our meeting summaries, boom, what do we have? We have a Google Doc with our heading here, and we have the HTML formatted with links and bullet points and everything in a Google Doc. Boom. We've now created our first automation. And then once we rename this and we say meeting summary to Google Doc, we name it that, we can now click publish, and this Zap will now be live. So now any new meeting summary that comes into Fathom will automatically be picked up by Zapier, taken and converted into a Google Doc, and it will have this format. Now, this seems like a really simple thing, and I hope I'm not going too slow. I get a lot of feedback that I talk too quickly. So if you're experiencing either one of those, please let me know. But I don't want to dumb it down too much, but I do feel like this is incredibly powerful. If your brain is already spinning and you can think of other ways you can do this simple one-step automation from this happens to this result, you can already see. Now For example, what if I were to replace the Google Docs step with Gmail? Maybe I want to automatically send a meeting summary or something to all the attendees. I may switch this out and say, or I may add, in fact, if you have a pro account, you may add another step that says, once you've done creating the Google Doc, why don't we send the link to that Google Doc to all the attendees? So again, I create my Gmail, I choose the action event. In most cases, I prefer to create a draft in my draft inbox so that I don't automatically or accidentally send it to a million people. But we can just straight up say, send an email, and we select our account. We have my Montclair one. I think I have a Gmail one. Let's do my Gmail. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add who is the to. And I'm going to pull that to field. I'm going to go to our meeting notes because we do have our meeting invites email. Now, personally, I prefer to just send it to our info at Center for Cooperative Media.org and then BCC people who are on a meeting because they doesn't necessarily agree to share their email with everyone else. So I go down to the BCC tag or field, I press the plus, I go to my Zapier meeting notes, and I see, here we go, meeting invitees email. And again, we're just going to go through these fields. Who is this coming from? It's coming from Joe Amditis. Who is the from name? Joe Amditis, or anything else I want to enter. Or if it's coming from something that might change, I can go back in here and I can say, who is the meeting host? The Fathom username is Joe Amditis. Maybe I'm using all the meetings in my team notes. And maybe if Stephanie hosts a meeting, I want the email summary to come from Stephanie's name, right? So all of this can be added dynamically or statically. It is totally up to you. You will notice that there's a little ... here that allows you to switch from static to custom. Sometimes you'd like to just type in a value here instead of just pulling from your Gmail information here. This can get a little tricky, but if I wanted to do a custom one and I wanted it to come from, see, do we have the email? Let's see, search for email. The Fathom user email. Again, I want it to come from me and my email address, but if Stephanie is hosting the meeting and I want it to come from her, it will automatically pull her name and her email. So you can see here the interplay between static or dynamic text and how that can work to your advantage. Again, only the ones that are required, only ones that have this little asterisk are required. I don't even think it requires you to send it to anyone. I don't know why. For our subject, I'm going to say meeting summary. And then I can add again, I can add the name of the title of the meeting. And I can choose here, I can choose whether or not I want a plain text email or an HTML email. For our purposes, I'm just going to do plain text and I'm going to say, hi folks, here is the summary from today's meeting. I'll say, here's the link to the Fathom summary from today's meeting. And instead of going back to Fathom, which I can add here, I can add the actual link to the Fathom recording URL, which you can see here. Just put that into if I put that into my browser, oh, it didn't let me copy it. If I pasted that into my browser, it would essentially bring to this page, right? You can see the URL is exactly the same. If I want to send them here, I can do that. But if I've already created a Google Doc, which is a little bit, you don't want to necessarily share all the recording or whatever, I can go in here and I can say, where is the shared URL? I'm just going to type URL to filter this out. And we can see here, we want our export links text email. We can use I like to use the alt link. Let me see, is there an alt link here? Parent self link. Oh, you know what? Link is the one I'm looking for. Alternate link. I don't know why that tends to work better for Google Docs. I just have never had any issues with alternative link and it works. And then I can add more here. I could say, let me know if you have any questions. Lord, you have any questions? Then I can sign it, Joe Amditis, or I can sign it with the dynamic text card or asset here, which will change if it comes from Stephanie or if it comes from myself. You can also add a signature if you have any of your signatures pre-saved on your Gmail, or if you want to change that yourself, that's fine. You can also choose to add a label to your email when it's sent out. So let's say if you have one that says automation or bot or something like that, so that for your documentation purposes, you want to look in your sent email inbox, it'll be labeled for you. I'm not going to do that for this because it's no point. And then finally, you can add attachments. So in our case here, I don't think there are any actual files that are associated with this, but this allows you to add URLs to a public file, public URLs to a file. So let's say I wanted to include a cute picture of a rabbit, I don't know why, at the end, right, of this. Or if I have in my WordPress backend, let's say I have our logo that we want to add to the end or attach something, maybe a contact card or something. I can come into our media file folder here, and I can take this great photo, and I can copy the URL, and I can add as an attachment here as a plain text. Just paste that there. And you'll see as soon as we add one attachment, another field opens up where we can have multiple attachments. I will say there are some limitations specifically with the Gmail automation that prevent you from, let's say I have that weekender email I told you about. We have all of these emails, which I will blur out in the recording. All of these people are subscribed to our emails. And the reason I have it in a Google Doc is because Zapier doesn't let you spam people. It has protections or guidelines so that you're not just scraping email addresses and just bombarding people who didn't subscribe or have no opportunity to unsubscribe from your emails. It doesn't let you, it has a rate limit, essentially. I believe it is 25 email addresses in one. And you can see, again, as soon as I add something here, it adds a new text box. So I can add a bunch of those. So for large lists like this, you may have to do some aspect of that manually, or you may have to find a workaround. But all of this now is set up so that when I click continue and I click test step, everyone in this BCC list, which I'm not going to hit because I don't want my coworkers to be confused, everyone will receive an email from info at Center for Cooperative Media, and they will be BCC'd on it. It'll be from Amditis J at Montclair. It'll be from name will say Joe Amditis. The heading, you could see it was updated to see this. Here's the link to our Fathom summary from Joe Amditis with that silly picture of the unmedicated child at the end. And if I click test, it will go ahead and run that and see if it works. I can also click skip test and then click publish. And now this will happen. Again, I'm going to remove this and delete it because I don't want that to happen. But this is now a fully functioning Zap. And we've gone and created our first automation. And you can see that in our Zaps tab here as well, in our instruction folder. And you'll see when I refresh, I don't know why it does this a million times, we have meeting summary to Google Doc. And now this is on. And if I click this little arrow here, I can see a little overview. I can edit, I can copy it, I can see the history, I can share this Zap as a template for other people to just plug and play, and I can see the apps that are collected here. I also have this button, in addition to just turning it on or off, I can, if it's already on, I can click turn off and delete Zap, and that will remove that Zap from my dashboard. Okay, I feel like that was a lot, but I also feel like we went slow enough so that it was pretty comprehensible. I want to open questions now because we do have about 7 minutes before the top of the hour. For those of you who have a hard out, by all means, we'll see you on Wednesday. Please go ahead and for homework, create a one-step or two-step Zap and come on Wednesday prepared to show me and discuss and ask questions about any issues that you have or questions about it. For those of you who can stay, I will give a little bit extra time, maybe 15 extra minutes to make up for that slow start we got, if you'd like to dive into anything else. Any questions or thoughts or comments on this for our first session?
Joe, do you mind sharing just like inspiration around what types of things have worked well?
Yes, absolutely. I can share templates. I can share, and after this, when I write the little recap of this and the instructions for Wednesday, I will, I'll include links to all the templates of Zaps that I have. And I can tell you a list of, which is what we're going to go over on Wednesday, but I'm going to show you like a rapid fire list of all the things that I use to automate. My favorite one recently is anytime a new URL or link to a story is posted in Slack in a particular channel, all I have to do is add a little squirrel emoji, Slack-moji reaction, and it'll automatically take the metadata from that link and create a pass-through link to post on our WordPress. So for instance, we collect articles and share and we curate articles about collaborative journalism at the national and international level. We have a Slack channel for that, and we use that to make a newsletter and gather links for our newsletter. In addition to that, instead of every time Mariela Santos Muniz, who runs our newsletter, shares a new link, and then I have to open up WordPress, log in, create a new post, all that stuff, I have it so I just put my little squirrel emoji. I just chose that one because no one uses our squirrel emoji, so I don't want to, confuse it. Anytime, all I have to do now, instead of opening it up and posting and everything, I just click the squirrel emoji reaction on that post, and instantly there is a WordPress post live on our site, on our home page, carousel or whatever. So things like that you're talking about, right? Like inspiration, things like that. Yes, I will. And at the end of this, by the way, I don't think I mentioned this. I forgot to mention this in the emails and in the description, but I'm going to give you like a whole document of tips and tricks, everything we've covered, templates I've created for you. I'm going to give you like a fat stack of stuff that, of knowledge and learnings and best practices that I've accumulated over the years. But on Wednesday, let's come here. Go ahead, take Monday and Tuesday to create your first Zap if you haven't already. Make your account, create your first Zap. Test it out, see if you can break it, try to do weird things with it. That's the best way to learn a new program, is to see what it can't do. And you'll start to get the contours of what it is capable of. And then come to class, quote unquote, Wednesday, prepared to discuss. And we'll spend the first 15 minutes sort of going over your progress and your experience so far, where you hit snags and where you did.